You know, sometimes the biggest, most fascinating legal puzzles are hidden in the tiniest phrases. Today, we are diving headfirst into an ancient rabbinic debate that all comes down to just two words in the book of Leviticus: the ordinance.
So here's our game plan for cracking this ancient code. We're going to start with the puzzle itself. Then we'll look at three competing theories from some brilliant sages. And finally, we'll see how two key verses just bring everything into sharp focus for a final, decisive answer. Okay, let's set the stage. We're dealing with a really specific offering here. It's for someone who couldn't afford a full animal sacrifice. Instead, they bring two birds. One is a sin offering, to atone for something. The other is a burnt offering, to show devotion. And it's the procedure for that second bird, the burnt offering, where our whole mystery kicks off.
And here it is. This is the verse right at the heart of everything. The second bird is prepared according to the ordinance. Sounds simple enough, right? Nope. The entire heated debate hangs on what the ordinance actually refers to.
This is the million-dollar question for the sages. Does it mean the bird offering should follow the rules of the animal offering it's replacing? Or does it refer to the other bird offering that was mentioned just a few lines earlier? The answer to this changes exactly how the entire ritual is performed.
So this kind of lays out the two main battle lines. Option A, the ordinance means the bird should be treated like the animal it's a stand-in for, so it follows animal rules. Option B, it should be treated like other birds, so it follows bird rules. Let's dig into that first argument.
All right, our first major theory comes from a scholar known simply as the first Tana, and he argues that to figure out the bird's ordinance, you've got to look at the animal it's replacing.
His logic is actually pretty straightforward. Since this bird burnt offering is only brought because a person can't afford an animal offering, well, its ordinance must be that of the animal sin offering. It's a substitute, so it should play by the original's rules. Makes sense.
Now, the crucial point is this. The first Tana says that, just like an animal offering, the bird has to be a common, unconsecrated animal. It's got to be offered during the day and by the priest's right hand. But this leads to a really critical question. With an animal, the ritual slaughter only requires cutting the majority of the neck. Does that same rule apply here?
And this is the real make-or-break question for this whole theory. If we're really, truly following the animal rules, then the bird's head should not be completely severed from its body during the ritual pinching, which is called Melikah.
But another verse comes along and throws a giant wrench in the works. This one explicitly says the head is pinched off and then burned. The sages argued that, hey, if the head and the body are burned as separate pieces on the altar, then they must have been separated during the initial pinching. Suddenly, Theory 1 is in big trouble.
So, this brings us to our next scholar, Rabbi Yishmael, who comes at this from a completely different angle. He thinks that first theory was looking for clues in all the wrong places. Rabbi Yishmael's argument is it's elegant. He says, why are we even looking at an animal offering? The phrase, the ordinance, has to refer to the other bird offering that's right there in the same passage, the bird sin offering. It's a bird, so it should follow bird rules. Simple.
And this illustrates his logic perfectly. Just as the bird sin offering is pinched at the nape of the neck, so too should the bird burnt offering. But wait a second, this creates the exact opposite problem. For a bird sin offering, the priest explicitly does not fully separate the head from the body. So does that rule now apply here?
So if Rabbi Yishmael is right, it seems like we have to leave the head attached with at least one of the simanim, that's the windpipe or the gullet, intact. Is this the answer?
Not so fast. Another key phrase from that very same verse comes into play, and the priest shall bring it. The sages interpret this to mean that the bird burnt offering must have its own unique procedure, one that is distinct from the bird's sin offering. It can't just be a carbon copy.
This brings us to our third and final opinion, this one from Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon. And he offers a really subtle but super important refinement on Rabbi Yishmael's idea.
So Rabbi Elazar agrees that the ordinance refers to the bird sin offering, but he hones it on a different part of the ritual altogether, the sprinkling of the blood.
His point is this. For the bird sin offering, the priest sprinkles the blood while the head is still attached. Therefore, the same has to be true for the burnt offering. To do that, you can't fully sever the neck. But to make it different from the sin offering, you have to cut more than just one siman. So he concludes you must cut the majority of both the windpipe and gullet, but not sever the head completely.
But Rabbi Elazar runs into the very same rebuttal. That phrase, and the priest shall bring it, still insists on a unique procedure.
His nuanced approach is still just a little too similar to the sin offering. The burnt offering has to be distinct, and the ultimate distinction is fully separating the head.
So where does all this leave us? I mean, it seems like every single theory has a fatal flaw, but this is where the real genius of the sages comes in. They realize you don't need to pick one verse over the other, you need both of them to crack the code.
The final ruling actually goes all the way back to the very first Tana's opinion, but it shows that his conclusion only works when you use both of the key rebuttal verses we've just seen. It is a beautiful, beautiful piece of legal logic.
Let's just walk through the final logic together. We start with that ambiguous phrase, the ordinance. Our first clue, the verse about burning the head, strongly implies complete separation, but you could still argue against it. So then we bring in our decisive second clue, and the priest shall bring it. This proves the procedure must be unique and different from the sin offering, which requires the head to stay attached, and that seals it. The second verse forces us to accept the most direct meaning of the first. The head and the body have to be completely separated.
And so, after all of that debate, we have our final, crystal clear ruling. The bird burnt offering requires complete separation of the head from the body. It's a totally unique procedure. And it also borrows those specific rules from the animal offering. It has to be done during the day, with the priest's right hand, using a non-sacred bird. The puzzle is officially solved.
This brings us to a final thought. I mean, the sages weren't just debating technicalities here. They were engaged in this profound act of interpretation because they believed that every single word of Scripture was packed with meaning. So the question I want to leave you with is this. What does this incredible level of detail and logical rigor tell us about the relationship between law, ritual, and the human pursuit of meaning?